Okay, hello Year 12 and welcome to a very quick video on religious experience. So a religious experience then is an experience that's supposed to be of the divine, of God. And they're deeply subjective, so we don't really know if they're true or not. Obviously, many people think they've had religious experiences, so this is an interesting piece of research that's done. One of the problems is how do you interpret special experiences that you have? An atheist might say that this is just chemicals or something special in the mind, but a religious person will interpret this as perhaps from God. So what's actually going on? Well, we have different kinds. We have near-death experience. We have numinous experiences, unable to be described. That's the noumenal. Visions, hearing voices, conversion experiences. So our question really is religious experience a strong basis upon which to build an argument for the existence of God? And let's look at the Toronto Blessing. So the Toronto Blessing, lots of people behaving very strangely, supposedly possessed by the Holy Spirit. Could there be another explanation for this? Well, this is a corporate religious experience, and arguably there is another explanation for this. The video seems to have paused. Apologies for that. Having a few technical issues. Okay, let's keep going. So the Toronto Blessing, it's a corporate experience, trustworthy maybe, experienced by lots of people, but the atmosphere may have led people to think they're having a religious experience. So it's debatable. And we have other religious experiences here, so feel free to pause the video and read these in your own time. So, first critic or first scholar, Teresa of Avila, a Catholic nun, talks about the ascent of the soul in 4 stages. The different stages leading to ecstasy, which is extreme pleasure. Now, many criticize this because they said, well, is she describing an orgasm? She wouldn't know it's an orgasm because she's celibate. A criticism of the criticism is that, well, maybe this is misogynistic, which is disrespectful of women, because we're saying that, well, she must be experiencing something to do with her body, and that might be something which is seen as patronizing. We wouldn't say the same thing about a man. So she was having a mystical experience, which is a sense of the supernatural or God, which goes beyond everyday experiences. We also have numinous experiences, which is indescribable, something of the world which is beyond us. But to be honest, these two are pretty interchangeable, numinous and mystical. These two aren't. So corporate is when many people experience it. Conversion is when you change religion because of the experience. So God speaking to Moses through a burning bush, numinous. Toronto Blessing, corporate. Teresa of Avila, mystical. Paul on the road to Damascus, conversion. Puerto Rican former gang member, changes, conversion. Pentecost, corporate. Muhammad in his cave at Hira, outside of Mecca, this is mystical. St. Bernadette, seeing a vision of the Virgin Mary, this is numinous. So feel free to pause these and read through them in your own time. So Schleiermacher, he agrees with religious experience. He says at the heart of religion is religious experience. That's the most important thing. And he believes religious experience is self-authenticating, which means it's the most powerful and important experience possible. So there's no other experience which can prove it true or false. So it's self-authenticating. So if you have a vision of Jesus, this is all the proof that's needed. Obviously, David Hume is a skeptic, and Richard Dawkins would say that this is not enough, but Schleiermacher would disagree. William James was a scholar who talks about the varieties of religious experience, and he talks about 4 main qualities which you can describe as well. Ineffability, which means it defies expression. Totally subjective, you cannot even speak about it. Contradiction here might be that William James is speaking about it. Noetic, which means knowledge is gained through this experience. Transiency, which means it lasts a short amount of time. Passivity, which means you're not in control of it. And so here's a summary of these critics, so you can pause this and read through this if you wish to. So this is the issue. Let's say you've seen a vision. How do you interpret this? So this seems to be framed through your own cultural bias. An atheist might say they're hallucinating. A theist might say it's a religious experience. And Hare argues that, this is a critic, Hare argues that really you can't really argue with these frameworks of reference, these subjective cultural positions. So if you're religious, you'll say it's a religious experience. If you're not, you'll say it's something else. So it's actually hard philosophically to argue with these experiences. So Bernadette Soubirous saw visions of the Virgin Mary at Lourdes. Now, if she was Indian, maybe she would have seen this through a different cultural lens. Would she have then said that this was the goddess Lakshmi? Does this disprove religious experiences then? Well, someone like Hick might say no, and Happold might say no as well, because they would say that actually a religious experience can be interpreted through your own cultural lens. Let's go to this very quickly. Oh, sorry, I think we've gone too far. Now, what that means is, yeah, here we go. What that means is maybe the experience is from God, but you're just dressing it up in your own cultural background. If you're a Catholic, you would say maybe this is the Virgin Mary. If you're a Hindu, you might say this is the goddess Lakshmi. And Hick has an interesting idea here, which is that all experiences, religious experiences, are from the same divine God, but you're simply accessing it from your own cultural vantage point. So he uses the Hindu myth of the elephant and the blind men. Now, Dawkins might criticize this and say, yes, they do all have something in common, and that's why they're similar. But what they have in common is a human mind, and the human mind wishes to project meaning onto psychological experiences. Okay, so Rudolf Otto talks about mysterium tremendum et fascinans. So he says that religious experience is defined by being a mystery that is both frightening and fascinating. So this is mystical religious experience. And F.C. Happold talks about this as well. So mystical experiences happening across different cultures. A conversion experience is an experience where you change your religion because of the experience. And we have some features of a conversion experience here. Now, William James says, if after a conversion experience the individual is happier, that's proof of its existence. It's proof that it's true. Now, Russell, in this debate with Copleston, disagreed with this. He said, no, just because you become a better or happier person doesn't mean the experience is more likely to be true. So conversion experiences are controversial then. So we can read through this, pause. These are reasons why they're controversial. Corporate experiences then are experiences where people become, they have an experience that's shared with others. So this happens from time to time. We've got some pieces of evidence in favour and against this as well that you can read through. So examples, Toronto Blessing, the Pentecost, for example. And people might criticize this and say it's mass hysteria, or it's the power of suggestion, or it's a psychological phenomenon of some sort. So people might explain religious experiences from different perspectives then, and that's an issue. But Richard Swinburne would say they should always be trusted. He says we should take religious experience seriously, or just as seriously as any other experience. So if you can hear someone knocking on the door, there probably is someone knocking at the door. If you can hear the voice of God, there probably is the voice of God. So he calls this the principle of credulity, which means we should always trust our senses, because 99% of the time our senses are telling us what's real, and the principle of testimony, which means we should trust what other people say, because 99% of the time what they're saying is true, is real. So feel free to pause this if you'd like to criticize it or to support it and read through some points. So Ludwig Feuerbach is a critic. He says that God is made up. Instead, religious experience comes from us. We're projecting our own idealized versions of ourselves onto this experience. And you might agree, you might disagree, and here are some points. Sigmund Freud was inspired by Feuerbach and said, yes, the mind projects onto these experiences our own infantile neurosis, our own desire to have a parental figure looking after us. We want God to be real because we're infantile. We can't cope with life. And again, you might agree or disagree, so feel free to pause this. And we have here Donald Winnicott, who talks about transitional objects. So religious experiences, like religion in general, are simply ways of us coping with a harsh world, a bit like a teddy bear or a comfort blanket. They don't actually have any real power. They're not actually real in the sense that we think they are. They're just ways of comforting us. So maybe a religious experience is just an illusion that helps us cope with a harsh world. And finally, we have Persinger's helmet. He was able to induce religious experiences through magnetic frequencies. Does this disprove religious experience? Well, some might say yes, and some might say no. Okay, so we've gone through that very quickly. Here are some AO2 points. Are religious experiences a valid basis for an argument for the existence of God? So feel free to pause this and read through it. Are corporate religious experiences more reliable than individual religious experiences? And finally, an essay. Are religious experiences reliable? So feel free to pause this after each paragraph and read through. Okay, so thank you very much, Year 12. That's the end of our religious experience video. I know it was very fast, but hopefully we've covered the main points.